the poop collector. In Edo-era Japan, human poop wasn't just waste, it was valuable merchandise. That's why some people's actual job was to collect it. They would go from house to house and ask for people's night soil, as it was known. Wealthier households produced better poop thanks to their richer diets, so their poop was worth more. The poop was then sold to farmers who used it as a powerful fertilizer to boost their crops. As a consequence, some people made serious money in the poop trade. It wasn't glamorous, but if you didn't mind the smell, it paid surprisingly well. The leech catcher. Back when bleeding someone was considered medicine, leeches were big business. Doctors used them for everything: headaches, hemorrhoids, and whatever else seemed too hard to explain. And to keep up with demand, you needed leech catchers. They'd wade into swampy water bare-legged and just stand there, waiting. The leeches would stick to their skin and get scraped off into jars and then sold. Maybe it was unpleasant, but hey, someone had to fuel the hemorrhoid cure economy. The whipping boy. In early modern Europe, it was considered normal for children to be punished by receiving corporal punishment. But royal children couldn't be punished like non-royal kids. You couldn't just spank a future king, so they hired a whipping boy, a kid who got punished instead of the prince. The idea was that the prince would feel so bad for his friend that he would behave. Spoiler, sometimes he didn't, because nothing says career path like getting slapped on a rich kid's behalf. The funerary clown. In ancient Rome, some funerals came with a clown. Not the balloon kind, but professional funerary clowns hired to impersonate the dead. They'd wear a wax mask of the deceased's face, follow the procession, and act out their quirks. The walk, the voice, the bad jokes. It wasn't mockery, it was celebration. Romans believed laughter honored the life lived, so instead of silent mourning, you might get one last comedy set. The skull arranger. In the Aztec Empire, human sacrifice wasn't the end of the story. After the ceremony, someone had to clean up. Please welcome the skull arranger. His job was to drill holes in freshly severed skulls, then thread them onto massive wooden racks called zompantli. They were displays meant to impress the gods and terrify enemies. But it wasn't just random stacking. It had to look good. Adjust, rotate, swap, and they had to fit. It was sacred. And yes, somehow also a full-time job. The sin eater. When someone died in 17th century England, their sins didn't just vanish. A piece of bread was placed on the chest of the corpse, like a spiritual sponge, and then eaten by a local outcast, the so-called sin eater. The idea? The sins passed into him through the food, cleaning the soul of the dead so they could move on peacefully. The sin eater, meanwhile, walked off with a coin and someone else's moral baggage. It was budget afterlife insurance, and one hell of a job description. The knocker-up. Back in the time, alarm clocks weren't a thing, but waking up for work still was. Please give a warm welcome to the knocker-up. Usually with a stick, the knocker-up would walk the streets at dawn and literally knock on people's windows to wake them up. They didn't stop until you gave a sign you were awake. No snooze button, just social pressure. Some used long sticks, but others preferred a funnier alternative. They were nicknamed the pea shooters because they'd shoot peas at your window. Variations popped up elsewhere too. In some places today, especially in Turkey, drummers still go door to door during Ramadan to wake people so they can eat before sunrise. The garden hermit. In Georgian England, some rich folks didn't want fountains or statues in their gardens. They wanted a hermit, a real one. They'd hire someone to live in a little hut on the estate, beard, robe, no talking, no bathing. Just sit there and look wise. Guests would stroll by, sip tea, and admire the authentic melancholy. It was a paid position. The job was literally to exist. Poetically. The ghost matchmaker. In old China, marriage wasn't just for the living. If a young person died single, their family might hire a death matchmaker, someone whose job was to find them a ghost partner. Why? Because dying unmarried meant facing the afterlife alone, and that was considered tragic and unlucky. The matchmaker would track down a deceased partner, arrange a ritual wedding, and bury them together. It was spooky, symbolic, and yes, an actual job. The toad eater. In 17th century England, some street scammers made a living selling fake potions to cure poisoning. Their secret weapon? The toad eater. It was his job to pretend he'd eaten something toxic, usually a toad, and then collapse in front of a crowd, twitching, foaming, putting on a full death scene. Then the scammer would give him a miracle cure. And boom, he's healed. It obviously wasn't medicine, it was marketing with a touch of drama. The farter. Before microphones and YouTube, some people made a living with farts. Known as flatulists, they were entertainers who mastered the fine art of flatulence. Ever since antiquity, flatulists were a thing. They'd imitate animals, fire off rhythmic blasts, and even fart entire tunes. The most famous one was Le Pétoman, who performed in Paris at the Moulin Rouge. He would blow out candles with his fart, and once even farted out a French anthem. Audiences were amazed and included big names such as Sigmund Freud or Leopold II of Belgium. It wasn't classy, but it was gas-powered income. The King Double. In ancient Mesopotamia, if the stars predicted disaster for the king, they hired a stand-in, a doppelganger. This process was known as Shar Puhi. A random guy, prisoner, servant, whoever, was crowned as a fake king. He got royal robes, a throne, maybe a few decent meals. And then the omen had to be fulfilled. If the omen predicted death, he was executed. The real king came back, nice and safe, like nothing happened. Not your typical job interview, and the firing was, well, final. To support, don't hesitate. Subscribe to the channel. See you next time.